Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Market Talk. We're delighted to be joined today by Tanya Hugo, who is the Director of Operations for Europe at Hard Rock International, and also Michael Eyre, who is the Culinary Director at Jestic Foodservice Solutions. Hello to you both. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, a lot happening in the marketplace and the industry at the moment as we get back to reopening and hopefully building this recovery that everybody desperately wants. Tanya, we'll begin with you if that's okay. I understand that you, in your role, look after about 50 different venues for the Hard Rock Group, and that covers obviously a number of markets in Europe. Due to the pandemic, I guess these are at very different stages of kind of opening and closure and so on. Can you give us some insight into the sort of the current state of play, as it were?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I do. I do supervise 50 units. I actually look after Europe, and then I'm also looking after the Eurasia, Africa, and Southeast Asia region at the moment, which includes India. So, I mean, there's a pretty broad spectrum in terms of what's happening in Northern Europe to what's happening in Southern Europe, the Middle East, and even India as well, and Africa. I would say that, obviously it's going according to the waves, and we have had a couple of really, really tough months. Sort of Q1, Q2 has been extremely challenging for Europe, while at the beginning of the year, India, for example, was doing pretty well. Sort of the Nordics, throughout the whole of last year, they were probably the country that implemented the least restrictions, but they did end up implementing restrictions as well. So it's been sort of quite varied across the entire region that I supervise. At the moment, it seems that over the last sort of 2-3 weeks, Europe is definitely reopening, which is very encouraging. Obviously within phases, in outside dining first, then inside dining, sort of 30-50% capacity. Curfews seem to be falling away now, and restaurants are able to open in the evenings. There are still some restrictions on, alcohol in certain countries, but it definitely seems to be, it looks like we're turning the corner. So definitely positive for the moment, with some recovery sort of stronger in some markets versus others, right? For example, the UK has opened sort of quite strongly, with Oxford Street having some fantastic sales, and Newcastle as well. So I'd say the UK is doing really well.
Great, that's good to hear. Obviously, Hard Rock Cafe, it's an iconic restaurant chain. It's very well known for its US-inspired menu, and of course, all of the amazing, music and rock memorabilia that are contained in all of your restaurants. Would you say that the company has had to adapt its business model in order to emerge from the pandemic in a positive light, or did you feel it's quite a sort of COVID-proof business model that you operate?
One of the first things that we did is we spent a lot of time working on COVID guideline, protocol, and manuals. So I was very, very involved in that. Sort of a couple of, month or two after the pandemic started, we really invested a lot of time and resources into developing, all of our Safe and Sound program, which basically incorporates everything from training manuals to signage, to PowerPoint presentations for class training, recertification of all of the staff, and really looking into, the whole training piece of Safe and Sound and COVID. And I would also say very much, especially in my region, I used to travel frequently. Every week I was in a different country prior to COVID, and it was pretty much the norm. And I've had to really look at the way I manage the region using technology. So while I would have done in-store visits before in order to validate and check compliance and brand standards and, adherence to brand standards, I've had to do a lot of that using technology. So doing virtual walkthroughs, I call them, in order to evaluate what's happening in the cafe. And then also as well, even from a training perspective, whereas in the past we would have sent somebody to a certified training store to do their training, we're now having to look at a lot of online training as well. So definitely trying to embrace technology more, And then the other thing that we've really looked at is the whole delivery piece. Yeah. While it wasn't something that we really did a lot of in the past, we've had to really look at sort of packaging, working with third-party aggregators, and analyzing and looking at taking that whole Hard Rock experience into the home.
Okay.
Good stuff. That sounds really positive, Tanya. We'll come back to you on that one, but I'll just bring Michael into the conversation now. Because, I say, as well as the industry in general and operator sites opening up, Jestic itself has opened up its demonstration kitchens in Paddock Wood and in Manchester. So can you tell us a little bit about how that's gone?
Yeah, it doesn't sound quite as glamorous as Tanya's area of geographical importance, but we're certainly open both of our test kitchens now. We've got the test kitchen down at Paddock Wood, which we've got the fast food test kitchen and the restaurant test kitchen, and we struggled to get people here. Obviously, people weren't allowed to travel, and when they were allowed to travel, there was the importance of coming and seeing a new piece of equipment or something. So we did invest in some technology, cameras, etc., and managed to get some demonstrations and some training. And equipment training was probably the hardest part, with getting out and around the country. And you sell new pieces of equipment to customers, and they want training on it. They want to learn how to use it properly and effectively. They've invested in new technology to try and assist with their operations, and if you don't use it properly, then it's not going to be as effective as if you do. So it really was trying to get people to embrace the Zoom and the Teams and all of the other platforms that we could do training on, and it worked okay. There is no substitute for face-to-face training. We've made, I would think, probably in excess of 100 training videos in the period since the first lockdown, and we've tried to keep them really small, bite-sized pieces, so less than a minute, and you could have 15 or 20 different videos on one piece of equipment, so people can go back and pick which bit they want to watch, not have to troll through a whole 45-minute video. So that was one of the things, but getting the kitchens open has been the most important thing for us. And we're seeing more and more demonstrations now. We're doing a lot of development work with some of our bigger high street customers now, looking at new pieces of equipment or new ways of using their existing equipment, and just trying to do that. And the test kitchens are both getting busier. Manchester, we're more slowly re-engaging with, because we have to travel from Kent to Manchester to man it. So trying to get a block of demonstrations together. We've done it a few times over the last few months where we've managed to get a block of demos booked in, but that's something that we're trying to get more engaged with Manchester. But down here in Paddock Wood, we've been pretty busy. We had about 8 or 9 demos the other week, so trying to get 2 a day through and clearing up between one and the other. We've actually got 2 separate kitchens here, so we can fairly easily separate those demonstrations during the day as well. So
yeah, so how have you managed with the whole social distancing component then? Has that put a spanner in the works, or has that been quite smooth to reopen with that in place? It's
been pretty smooth. Generally, we don't have mass demos, so we don't have 10 or 15 people turning up. It will be 1, 2, 3 people. They could potentially be the same family. They could potentially be in work bubbles. So we've kept our side of the kitchen to us as best we can, and then the guests sit around we've got a big central island in the main test kitchen, and that's been blocked off, so there's space around and about. Obviously sanitizer everywhere and masks until you're sitting down, and all the wonderful COVID compliance that we've had to go through with the office. But what we've been able to do, because we've spent an awful lot of time getting the office COVID compliant, we've been able to roll that through the kitchen as well. So it was very much one-way systems and all that kind of stuff. They were already in place. So it meant that we were it was fairly easy to do it. Once the main bulk of the work had been done, it was, as I say, fairly easy to roll it through the test kitchen. And just because they're quite big spaces and we've got fairly small numbers of people in there, it's pretty easy to keep socially distanced.
Michael, I know before the pandemic you had a really packed agenda in terms of the kind of training and menu development work that you did face to face in those facilities, and particularly the one in Kent. Do you envisage a time when it gets back to that level, or do you think now there will be some operators that just want that kind of support on online basis?
To be honest, I think we're almost back where we were pre-COVID as far as demonstrations. Certainly on-site training, we're definitely as busy now. We're probably, if I had to put a number on it, we're probably 75% of the way back to normal as far as demonstration numbers are concerned. I think what we're trying to space them out a little bit more, give us a little bit of time to reset in between. But it's, as I say, with two separate kitchens, it's pretty easy to set up for both.
Yeah.
In the morning, do one, and then just move into the other kitchen, do the other one, if that's how we're operating on the day. But it's been pretty good and very busy, both with end user customers and high street chains.
Excellent. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Great.
And I've actually been into London twice in the last month as well, which has been lovely. It's I was up in town on Thursday last week, and the sun was out, but it is still really eerily quiet. But yeah, it was lovely to actually be up near London Bridge and be in a development kitchen looking out of the window at the Shard. It was just nice to be back in London, and I never thought I'd say that, but I've really missed being in town. I think I've just missed being with people, to be honest with you. And much as it's lovely being on Zoom with you guys this morning, it's not the same as sat around with a cup of coffee.
No, that's right. And speaking of London, it's obviously a good segue into the next question, really, for Tanya. Hard Rock's renowned for the restaurant that it has in the heart of London. But one piece of exciting news for you guys is that you've also just launched a restaurant in Newcastle, and obviously you've been spending some time there recently to support that launch. Tell us why Newcastle and why now?
I think it's quite an iconic city, and I think that the people in Newcastle really, many people that I've spoken to are really crazy about the brand. The franchise partners that we have there are so enthusiastic, and that project was probably, underway for about a good 3 years. I mean, obviously COVID delayed the whole process, when it came to trying to get the restaurant open. But I think it's a vibrant city. It's there's fantastic nightlife there. I think it was the perfect place to open a cafe.
Yeah, obviously, as Andrew said, most people will be familiar with your London site. So, yeah. I mean, does opening in Newcastle signal that you're going to expand operations within the UK? Are you looking at other franchise partners?
I think we're always looking at new franchise opportunities, and I think there are other markets in the UK that would be interesting, for Hard Rock to develop into. Right now, we do have in London on its own, we do have 3 restaurants. So we've got the Old Park Lane restaurant, which is the original, the first Hard Rock that ever opened in 1971. It's actually our birthday on the 14th of June. So we're going to be 50 years old shortly. Yeah. And then we've also got the Piccadilly Cafe right on Piccadilly Circus. And then we also have a Hard Rock Hotel where we have a cafe inside as well. So there are already 3 in London. So Newcastle's the latest addition, but I'm assuming that, if there are more opportunities, to develop, then absolutely.
Good stuff. Because your sites are quite large, aren't they? So, I mean, the Newcastle, the new one, can serve 200 covers. So, I mean, what sort of back of house operation does that involve to be able to serve all of those diners simultaneously?
Yeah, Newcastle was a little bit of a challenge because it's a grade 1 listed building. So everything from, plumbing to extraction, all of the MEP was, a little difficult. Their back of house is considerably small, for the capacity of the restaurant that they have. But somehow, we made it work. I think sometimes you just need to try and maximize the space that you have. And, in the case of smaller footprints, we do sometimes have to adjust the menu slightly. But I would say, Newcastle is tight, but it's a nice size. And yeah, it's actually a really, really busy restaurant. I think if we had more seats, we'd be doing more covers.
Well, that's a nice position to be in anyway. And
yeah.
Some of those things you mentioned there, Tanya, I guess we'll be familiar with you, Michael, in terms of some of the challenges that operators face now, in terms of footprints, back of house space, the type of cooking applications that operators want to use.
Very much so, and I think people are looking at using their equipment in different ways, more so than they ever have done before. It's trying to get more out of less space, less equipment, and yeah, it's just versatility and ease of use and all those kind of things that people are looking for. I think I think kitchens will get smaller. They have done over the years, and real estate is getting more expensive. So the smaller the kitchen, the more covers you can get in. It's a fairly simple equation, but yeah, I think looking at storerooms and stuff like that as well, people, everything's going to get smaller over time to try and get more people in. And I'm guessing, Tanya, with your 200 covers in Newcastle, is that 200 restricted, or is that 200 maximum?
Yeah, it's basically, that would be the full capacity. Right now I'm running on about 140, 150. So with the meter between the tables and the restrictions and the distancing, we have reduced the capacity temporarily until the restrictions lift, which I think is the 21st of June, right?
We hope so.
Yeah, if all goes according
ready,
to plan,
if everything's plan, it'll be the 21st of June. So hopefully you'll be able to be up to running at full capacity. But it's probably been quite nice to be able to get up and running with a slightly smaller crowd, is it? Or would you prefer just get going max capacity and just get on with it?
No, I generally tend to err in favor of doing things slowly. Yeah. People are still learning, although we spent a lot of time training. The staff in Newcastle had a training team of 13 international trainers with me, and we were there for about a month. Yeah. People do need time to build their skills, to feel more comfortable in the role. So I always prefer to start a little bit more slowly, and then people feel confident, then, build it up and seat, at a higher capacity.
And Tanya, obviously the kitchen, the back of house aspect of it all is so intrinsic to the success of your operations. How much time do you spend on that area yourselves when opening a new store? And do you sort of follow a set template when it comes to the type of equipment that you use?
We do have various design standards. So we, for example, work on a small, medium, or large kitchen. And on each of those versions is an open or a closed version. Generally, recently we tend to be building more open kitchens. So Newcastle is an open kitchen, and a lot of the other ones that I've done recently are all open kitchens. And I think because of the volume that we do have brand specifications as well in terms of kitchen equipment. So, I know that the fryers need to be a certain brand. There are a couple of brands that we do accept. With certain specifications, BTUs, etc., capacity, volume. The grill's the same. So we've got equipment specifications and also preferred brands that we generally tend to work with on a global level in terms of the kitchen. In terms of my implication, I get involved right from the beginning. So in kitchen design, Obviously, each cafe or each restaurant is a little bit different, right? And I'm very, very involved in kitchen and bar design. I like to look at everything, obviously, from an operations perspective. You know, how is it going to work for the guys that are working there in the space? So I'm involved in that. And then throughout the entire opening process, I'm literally in the kitchen every single day. You know, if it's commissioning equipment when I get on site, to, you know, reviewing schematics and layout of the kitchen with the kitchen trainers, looking at temperature control, looking at, you know, everything that's regarding food safety and sanitation, following up on training, you know, getting into the kitchen myself to do line checks, you know, checking quality, checking temperatures. I don't know, I think the back of house for me, you know, I always try and go and spend some time with the dishwashers. I always go and spend some time with the prep staff. Very often they're the unsung heroes, yeah? And I definitely try and spend enough or as much time with them as I can, yeah? I think it's important that you're there, whether, you know, it's moral support or whatever. I think, you know, we just can't afford to forget about that area. It's the heart of the house, yeah?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Just picking up on something you said about open kitchens, it kind of ties into a recent launch through Jestic, because you guys recently introduced the Mabrassa Perilla Open Grill, Michael. So
We
can you
did.
tell us a little bit about that? And is that kind of leaning into the trend for theatre cooking?
Yes, the fire, as it's called, is an addition to the Perilla range from Mabrassa. It's just a little bit more theatrical. It's got the big windy handles on the top for raising and lowering the grills, and you've got the fire basket in the middle of it, so you can actually burn wood in that and create your own ash bed and almost your own charcoal. But you're getting a certain, you're using charcoal as the main fuel source, but the wood adds a little bit of theatre and also a slow trickle of extra embers for your ash bed. So adds to that, yes. I mean the Mabrassa range, the entire range, whether it's ovens, grills, Perillas, Robatas, etc., etc., they all lend themselves so well to open kitchens. People love seeing flames, they love seeing smoke, they love seeing movement, and that kind of equipment certainly adds to that.
Yeah, so those kind of solid fuel cooking appliances, they are proving popular, but it can also create additional challenges in terms of ventilation and that kind of thing.
Ventilation's an interesting one, because we looked into this years ago when they rewrote DW172, when Beazer decided to rewrite that. There was no charcoal or solid fuel of any description covered in that. So we sat down with the guys that wrote that, and Hamilton and Big K and various other people, and it's very different how you extract wood and charcoal because of the products of combustion. So when you burn wood, you create creosote, which is a sticky tar that lines your flue. When you burn charcoal, you don't, but you do get soot coming off it. So there are different challenges with wood and charcoal, and if you're burning wood in a charcoal appliance, it has to be extracted as a wood burning appliance. If you're burning wood in a hybrid oven, if it's like a pizza oven, for example, you're burning wood and gas, and you have to then, you always take the worst case scenario, so it has to be extracted as a wood-fired appliance. So yeah, I mean it's pretty well covered in that document as to what you can do and what you can't do, and what the laws are, and what you need and what you don't need. And as long as you stick to it and extract everything properly, you'll be okay. I mean, carbon monoxide is the biggest issue with charcoal. Certainly, but you get a CO meter in there and keep your extraction on for the advised amount of time. You should be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And Michael, one question on the supply side. We're hearing a lot at the moment about shortages that are happening and difficulty in getting materials and the knock-on effect this has for lead times. You obviously work with a lot of European and North American manufacturers. Are you sort of getting any bottlenecks that are causing any difficulties?
We do. We're seeing. I think there's challenges everywhere. We're seeing longer lead times from manufacturers. I think they're having issues getting raw materials. I think I've heard that the manufacturer of ventilators over the last 12, 14, 15 months has led to a shortage of some components that are shared between cooking equipment, and it's mainly the manufacturer of boards, control boards. I think there's been some issues with supply on parts for that, so that's pushing lead times out. I think we had a container on a boat, or ship, should I say, that was sat off Liverpool for 2 or 3 days waiting for a docking space. I think I'm not sure if this is off the back of the Suez Canal issue, where the boats were piling up in there and then they were let through, so there were more boats coming through in a shorter period of time. I'm not sure, but we're certainly seeing some challenges with lead times on equipment. We are trying to mitigate those as much as we can, ordering extra stock. We're certainly seeing a bit more air freight going on at the moment. So our core customers are not suffering as a result of that. We're trying to manage it as best we can using air freight, but obviously that gets expensive.
Yeah.
And yeah, if we can bring small bits in to ease the burden, then that's what we're doing. But it's certainly, it's not all plain sailing at the moment getting equipment in from anywhere in the world. I don't think it matters where it is.
Yeah, or many other materials for that matter. I think.
Oh yeah, I think everything. I think everybody's struggling to get.
That's right. Yeah. And Tanya, just to come back to you and continue the theme on your work on the kitchen side, sort of looking forward over the next year or so, can we expect to see any changes to the way that you operate back of house, or any new applications or platforms that you'll be introducing to the kitchens within the Hard Rock estate?
I mean, we do already operate, with various types of software in terms of cost control, inventory, or ERP back office. Yeah. I think, continuing to work with those kind of tools is critical. And we do already work with, KDS screens in the kitchens. Other than that, I think I would like to see more technology in the kitchen. So maybe, due to the challenges around travel, and hopefully, it'll improve with time, but be able to use more technology in a kitchen environment in order to train, right? So train managers on how to do a line check, train kitchen managers, on whether it's food safety and sanitation, temperature control, even recipe execution. Yeah, I think, there's a huge opportunity in terms of technology and going digital in the kitchen environment. I think for training purposes more than anything else, because you can't just easily send somebody to another country to train like we have done in the past. So I think definitely more technology.
Good stuff. Well, we're about out of time, I'm afraid, this week, but thank you very much, Tanya. Thank you very much, Michael, for joining us this week.
Thank you.
And join us again next week for another episode of Market Talk.